Hello and good evening, everybody. Welcome to Unite for Action. I'm your host, Jesse Austin. We are an independent socialist news media and mutual aid worker cooperative. If you enjoy this video and want to learn more here with us, please consider subscribing to our channel here on YouTube, and make sure you click that bell and then click all so that you're always notified whenever we release a new segment. As a computer programmer, an analogy I often like to make is that people here in the United States and other Western neoliberal capitalist republics are rarely ever exposed to the back end of our capitalist system, which is the end that is most obviously contingent upon militarism and imperialism. We're mostly familiar with the storefront, the proverbial front end of neoliberal capitalism. We fill our motor vehicles up with a tank of gas, and then it's off to, well, work. But then eventually, it's off to the store to buy whatever it is we need for the week or month. The stores are nice, clean, and well lit, except for at night, as some will point out, where literal tons of basic necessities are locked away from those in need under lock and key. So we get the impression that everything is hunky-dory, and we don't think much about anything that happens beforehand to produce this peculiar state of affairs. But in the back of our minds, a lot of us do know that other countries are harshly exploited and constantly threatened with the iron fist of the US military and CIA, as well as UN sanctions, almost always with overwhelming support from military coalitions like NATO, in order for our wasteful system to produce this illusion of independent capitalist prosperity. Today we're going to be zeroing in on the ruthless capitalist resource extraction in Nigeria and shining a spotlight on the back end of capitalism for a moment. It is very well known at this point that oil is one of the most important, if not the most important resource to the United States, as most recently confirmed by Vice President Kamala Harris.
You know, for years and generations, wars have been fought over oil. In a short matter of time, they will be fought over water.
What I didn't know, however, was just how prolific a source of oil Nigeria was to my country, the United States. In 2010, they were our fourth largest supplier of crude oil. You might think from contributing such a large chunk of what undeniably makes our economy go round, we would try our best to repay them with equally big investments toward robust infrastructure for their citizens. But the name of the capitalist game appears to be to skirt as many of those courtesies as possible in order to make the biggest buck. Just a quick aside, not all of the major oil companies operating in Nigeria are American or European. There are two Chinese enterprises, Adax Petroleum and Nexen Incorporated, active in Nigeria's oil industry as well. But the top four oil companies who most frequently disregard environmental standards are ExxonMobil, which is an American company, Chevron, which is also American, Statoil, which is a Norwegian company, and Shell, which is a Dutch firm. Despite Nigeria being home to 150 oil fields and 1,400 active oil wells, 30% of Nigerians lack access to clean drinking water, and 70% are subject to inadequate sanitation. 1 in 5 children die prematurely, and the population as a whole suffers greatly from preventable illnesses like diarrheal disease, tetanus, malaria, and malnutrition. As if this ongoing neglect of an essential trade partner wasn't bad enough, the pollution caused by these oil companies that make their profits in Nigeria is destroying any remaining semblance of the sustainable way of life the people in Nigeria were once accustomed to living. Contaminated water and soil has made subsistence agriculture, that is farming and fishing, nearly impossible, causing widespread unemployment and hunger. While some of my fellow citizens here in America may recall BP had a very relentless campaign to rehabilitate their image after their spill in the Gulf of Mexico, which did involve some actual cleanup, most European firms and governments also tend to respond that way to oil spills that affect their citizens, but the spills that happen in the Niger Delta region are basically all but ignored. Just to get a sense of perspective for how bad of a problem this is, 4 million liters of oil are spilled annually in the United States, while 40 million liters of oil are spilled in the Niger Delta region alone, which is only 7.5% of Nigeria's entire landmass. Living descendants of the 250 documented ethnic groups and tribes remaining in Nigeria today are still being brutally evicted for the sake of a polluting oil machine that selectively doesn't clean up after itself in Nigeria. And as you might suspect, Great Britain has a pretty big hand in all of this too. Having established colonies in many countries, not limited to India and Nigeria since their Industrial Revolution, they also helped stoke ethnic tensions fueling Nigeria's civil war in the late 1960s, alongside the U.S. oil companies' lobbying campaigns that spearheaded the tax battle hysteria in an effort to further destabilize Nigeria and secure a bigger piece of the pie as it pertains to the oil market. Just like the U.S., Nigeria's current government is severely corrupt in favor of global capitalism and at the expense of its own people, and it's all justified through anti-communist propaganda and the shock doctrine. These are the same tactics we've seen recently against Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela and Evo Morales in Bolivia. Nigeria's current government, born out of several military coups and the aforementioned civil war, largely exists to serve the interests of these American and European oil companies, as evidenced by the lack of true infrastructure despite its massive oil industry that we've discussed earlier. The government's priorities speak for themselves. In the words of Michael Parenti,
the capitalist European and North American powers have carved out and taken. They have taken out of these countries. These countries are not underdeveloped, they're overexploited.
Everything about the situation in Nigeria shows that these words still ring true as ever. Well, alright, looks like that just about wraps it up for today's segment. Thank you for joining us this evening on Unite for Action. If you are inspired to provide some mutual aid of your own to us and help us continue producing this program for you, you can support our worker cooperative by donating through any of the following channels, and we promise to turn all of your donations into good news stories of our working together to provide mutual aid for those in need and fight this capitalist system with everything we've got. If you would like to leave constructive feedback or volunteer for the co-op directly, please contact us here, uniteforaction@gmail.com. Thanks, and good night, everybody.